I didn't donate money. I gave up the one thing that moved my life forward and watched it carry someone else's life into the morning. My name is Eamon Ridge. 9 years ago, just past midnight, I handed my only bicycle, chain squeak and all, to a midwife I'd met only once. Her name was Noah Lark. Last year, the network she built from that night's ride cut maternal deaths in half across our region. And then it kept going. But first, there was a dark road, a stuck bus, and a bell that wouldn't stop telling the truth. I was a line cook then, closing up at the Rook and Ember Diner. My flaw? Not drama, just fearful thrift. After my father died with more debts than dishes, I gripped every useful thing like it could run away. That bike was my lifeline. 20 minutes to work, 20 back, food money in between. It wasn't much. Matte frame patched with tape, a brass handlebar bell with a hairline crack that made the ring sound like a bird clearing its throat, and a faded reflective ribbon knotted to the seat post. I kept a tiny spoke card tucked in the wheel, a grease-smudged map I'd drawn. Back streets, safe shoulders, the alley that dodged the steep hill. Past midnight, rain had rinsed the streetlights into halos. I heard quick footsteps and someone swearing softly at a stalled bus. A woman in a gray jacket with a midwife satchel pressed to her hip was arguing with a driver who had shrugged his night into neutral. "Roads flooded at the bend," he said. "Lady, I'm not losing my job for one passenger." "It's not one passenger," she said. "It's two, maybe three if we count the fear in that room." She turned away, calculating the distance in her head the way some people count rosary beads. When she saw my bike, she didn't smile. She measured. "Do you rent it?" she asked. "It's my legs," I said. "Mine aren't fast enough," she said. "The mother's bleeding. The clinic's 12 minutes by wheels if you know where to cheat the hills." The fearful thrift in me shouted, "No." The better self in me said nothing and reached for the quick release. "I don't rent it," I said, voice smaller than I wanted. "I can give it tonight." I unsnapped the brass bell, then stopped. "If you give a boat, you give the oars." I screwed the bell back on, slid the spoke card map into her hand, and tied off the sagging strap on her satchel with my reflective ribbon. "My name's Eamon," I said. "Noah," she said, already straddling the frame. "Pull left at Kettle Street, skip the main," I said. "The alley ride's smoother." "The alley's dark," she said. "Ring twice at blind corners," I said. "The bell's louder than it looks." She glanced at me once the way people look at a stranger who just moved a door from locked to open. "You'll need this more than me," I added, unlatching my headlamp and fitting it over her knuckles. "I'll need you to know we made it," she said. "Listen." She rang the cracked bell, a small, stubborn sound. I watched my ride vanish into the rain with my job tied to its seat post. Then I walked home. 45 wet minutes to consider what I'd done. I got there late, colder, oddly lighter, and memorized the empty hook where my bike used to sleep. At 3:18 a.m., my phone buzzed with a number I didn't know. "We're stitched and stable," Noah said, breathless. Ring heard. I slept 2 hours. At 5, I laced up and walk-ran to the diner. My manager eyed the clock. "Bicycle trouble?" he asked. "Long story," I said. "Good stories cost shifts," he said, but softer than he meant. I showed up, I kept showing up, feet blistered, pride limped. But the brass bell kept echoing in my mind with its cracked little courage. The next night, Noah came by the back door of the diner. She set my bike on its stand. The frame was muddy. The bell was shinier than before. "Your map found me more than once," she said, tapping the spoke card. "And your ribbon?" I asked. "Made a handle for the blood pressure cuff," she said. She lifted the ribbon, now tied into a clean square knot, and pressed the knot into my palm. "A reminder," she said. "Some knots hold more than gear." She tried to repay me. I shook my head. "Pay forward," I said. "Ride where the buses won't." "I will," she said, then looked past me like the night had whispered a bigger idea. Noah did not become a hero in a headline. She practiced logistics. She started with 5 names scribbled on a folded index card. Neighbors with bikes and odd hours. A baker, a security guard, a student, a retired mail carrier, a woman who delivered newspapers at 4 a.m. She borrowed a whiteboard from the clinic and wrote in thick marker, "Moonlight routes. Flat first, paved second, lit third." She used my map and then made it better. Color-coding the safe shoulders, marking dogs that chase, and drawing little bells on blind corners. She called the group Midnight Larks, not after herself, but after the bird that sings before dawn. They tested routes at strange hours, learned which alley pooled water after a hard rain, and discovered that ringing twice calmed more tempers than yelling once. Setbacks came like weather. A city officer warned them about unsanctioned transport. A donor promised reflective vests, then forgot. A chain snapped at the worst hill. A mother delivered on a porch in the cold. Baby fine, mother shaken. Noah went home and wrote in the margin of her notebook, "We are not ambulances, we are bridges." She added birth kits to the satchels. Gloves, sterile cord ties, a laminated one-page protocol in plain words. She fought for a text tree connection with the clinic so that a ring-ring emoji could summon the nearest rider. She taught her riders to carry two sounds, the bell for warning, the quiet voice for calming. My part stayed small and honest. Between shifts, I rode with them to test the timing. I fashioned bell mounts out of old spoon handles from the diner. I printed more spoke cards, maps thin as prayer, and learned to love the oil under my nails. Noah failed open book and on paper. A grant application came back stamped denied. Liability unclear. She swallowed the rejection, then rewrote the pitch in human words. We don't replace ambulances. We make sure more mothers are alive when ambulances arrive. The second try got a small yes. Not enough for a fleet, enough for lights, bells, and rain covers. She built training nights behind the clinic. How to lift without hurting your back. How to speak to a terrified grandmother. How to fix a chain with cold hands. She made a rule I'd never heard. If you are scared, say it out loud. Fear hides best in silence. Winter tested them hard. A hill iced. A rider wiped out and broke a wrist. Noah wrote, "Riders are replaceable, mothers are not," on the whiteboard and cried only when no one could see. She kept the reflective square knot in her pocket, rubbed it when meetings got mean, and made a new map every time the city tore up a street. The work spread sideways before it spread up. A town 2 valleys over asked for her route kit. A nurse borrowed her one-page protocol and taped it to 3 clinics. Someone posted a video of bells in the rain, and people in cities I'd never see started drawing their own maps on the backs of power bills. Then the flood year came, the kind you measure your life against. Bridges closed. Phones chirped warnings that made whole neighborhoods forget how to breathe. The Midnight Larks did not become firefighters. They became first carriers, moving mothers from apartments to higher ground, from one warm kitchen to a neighbor's truck with 4-wheel drive, from too late to just in time. The number that would later go on the banner began as a rumor. Half, someone whispered in the clinic hallway. We're at half. Half of what? Half the deaths we expected. Numbers are cold until they thaw into faces. We didn't cheer. We kept pedaling. 9 years after that midnight, the National Public Health Forum unveiled a program with a clean, sturdy name. Moonlight Roots Network. Under it, a small logo. A brass bicycle bell with a tiny crack, and a square knot shining like a small promise. I took the morning off. First time I'd asked in years. I put the reflective ribbon knot in my pocket. I carried the old spoke card like a saint's relic. At the auditorium door, the volunteer scanned my pass and frowned. "Sir, this is tomorrow's session." I had read the email fast and wrong. The small knot tightened. Maybe my part was supposed to stay behind kitchens and alleys. "I'll wait in the lobby," I said. "I'm good at listening through walls." "Can't allow that," she said, kind. I was turning away when a maintenance worker rolling a ladder caught the glint of my ribbon knot. He tapped his chest. There, pinned to his vest, a mini bell from the network's kit. "You Eamon?" he asked. "Yes," I said, startled. "Boss said if a man shows up carrying a bit of the first night, don't let him leave." Backstage smelled like warm cables and coffee. A map of dots and lines. Towns and bike lanes glowed on the wall. Noah stood beside it, hair pulled back, the midwife's satchel still at her hip like truth you keep practical. She saw me, paused, the way someone does before deciding if they're seeing a memory or a man. "Eamon," she said. I didn't hug. She didn't either. We stood in the quiet count of 4 we had taught riders. Breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. Then we were caught up in the swirl. On stage, Noah didn't pitch. She told the small story. The stalled bus. The cracked bell. The map someone drew when money couldn't draw quick enough. She didn't say my last name. She didn't have to. She said the words we'd earned. We are bridges. Ring twice at blind corners. Fear hides best in silence, say it out loud. Then she revealed the measured proof. 9-year numbers that made hard people soften. Hemorrhage response times down, night transfers up, and the number I'd heard first as a rumor now printed clean. Maternal deaths reduced by 51%. Half, and then some. The crowd rose, slow, not theatrical. Not a victory parade. A standing exhale. After people swarmed, I slipped to the side of the stage where the boxes were. Noah found me. She reached into the satchel and pulled out a small, cloth-wrapped bundle. Inside lay a brass bell. Not mine, not new. Etched with a single star and a hairline crack on purpose. On the clapper, a thread of reflective ribbon tied in a square knot. For the first map, she said. For the first night, I said. She smiled, then grew quiet the way roads do when the snow absorbs sound. I almost missed you at the door, she admitted. Our coordinator had you down for tomorrow. I'm used to being a day off, I said. We wouldn't be here without you, she began, then stopped herself. Without 1,000 someones, she corrected. Bridges, I said. We walked outside. Daylight made the bell look like it had its own small sun. Traffic coughed. A messenger bike slid by with a mini bell that sounded like an echo of ours. Somewhere, in towns I've never seen, maps are being drawn on napkins, bells are being bolted to handlebars, and a square knot is being taught at a kitchen table. No sermon, no trumpet, just a bell held still for a heartbeat, and 2 people listening long enough to hear the road decide to carry somebody home.